Good evening, I'm your host, Jack Remington, the Jack Remington Political Analyst Channel. So let's watch this Channel 5 here in Los Angeles, this KTLA, with their Marxist communist commentaries. They're just giving one small portion of the story. Let's take a look.
News now at noon. California Governor Gavin Newsom has filed an emergency motion to block President Trump's deployment of military forces to Los Angeles following days of ICE protest. Thanks for joining us for the KTLA 5 News at noon. I'm Glenn Walker.
And I'm Lou Parker. Hundreds of U.S. Marines have arrived here in Los Angeles to assist the National Guard, but local officials insist these troops are not needed.
Our live team coverage continues this afternoon. KTLA 5's Kimberly Chang is live in downtown Los Angeles with the latest on the protests and military presence. But we'll start with KTLA 5's Lauren Lisser with more on the governor's emergency request. Lauren?
Yeah, that's right, Glenn and Lou. New at this hour, we're getting word from the governor as well as the attorney general that they are asking the Trump administration immediately to be blocked in any expansion of the National Guard and Marines mission here in Los Angeles. Take a look. You can see the National Guard here behind me at the federal building. This all comes as the president takes credit for stopping violence in L.A. and says he told Governor Newsom this in a recent call.
Called him up to tell him, got to do a better job. He's doing a bad job, causing a lot of death and a lot of potential death. If we didn't send out the National Guard, and last time we gave him a little additional help, you would have Los Angeles would be burning right now.
You are looking at last night's demonstrations in downtown L.A. California Governor Gavin Newsom with a very different take on things versus the president. On X just this morning, accusing the president of, quote, militarizing our state and provoking chaos, saying the additional 2,000 National Guard troops recently mobilized to bring the total of 4,000 will inflame tensions in L.A. The state already filed a lawsuit over the National Guard federalization and deployment, arguing it is unconstitutional. And now with the Marines headed to Los Angeles, the new legal action just coming down and being reported in the last hour. The governor in a Pod Save America podcast interview recorded before this latest news saying that the president's actions should be concerning more broadly.
This is an act not just against the people here in Los Angeles, against the people here in the state of California, but against Americans all across this country, against the principles of our founding father that did not live and die to watch these authoritarian tendencies in action.
Recently, there's been a back and forth between the president and Newsom, with the president suggesting Newsom could be arrested if he interferes with immigration enforcement. Speaker of the House today asked on Capitol Hill if Newsom should be arrested. Here's how he answered.
That's not my lane. I'm not going to give you legal analysis on whether Gavin Newsom should be arrested, but he ought to be tarred and feathered. I'll say that. I mean, look, he's standing in the way of the administration and the carrying out of federal law, right? He is applauding the bad guys and standing in the way of the good guys.
Take a look over the weekend. You may recall Paramount was in LA County City where we saw protests that started in response to an ICE staging area near a Home Depot. Well, today a lawmaker representing that area of LA County in Congress, she expressed concerns over the president's rhetoric.
They're using words like insurrection. They're using words like invasion, because I believe this is their way to lay down the groundwork to try to have martial law and invoke the Insurrection Act. And I think that's a concern. And remember, this is an order not just for California, but for this entire country.
So you can see the very different rhetoric, whether you're hearing from Democrats or Republicans, this issue highly political. And back here on the ground in Los Angeles, we're learning from the Pentagon the cost of this, the National Guard and the Marines being sent here. The Department of Defense reporting it comes with a price tag of $134 million. That's the latest live here in downtown LA. I'll send it back to you in the studio.
All right, Lauren, thank you. And meantime, as Lauren referenced there, 700 U.S. Marines have already arrived on the ground here in Los Angeles, and local officials are prepared for the possibility of more protests. KTLA 5's Kimberly Chang joining us live from downtown L.A. with more. Hi, Kimberly.
Lou, hi. We're standing in front of the federal building, and we know that hundreds of Marines are headed to Los Angeles. No sign of them here yet. But what I can show you when we push in across the street here is a small group of protesters and community members who have gathered in front of this federal building. And I do want to remind you and apologize in advance that you may see some profanity because there is spray paint and graffiti pretty much on all of these buildings in this stretch of area. And you can also see that this is where the California National Guard is.
There are many people who are suffering and many people who need help right now. This is a peaceful protest. They're the ones who are escalating it, and people need to know that.
I just want to know where the kids are and the parents.
Where are the kids and the parents?
Yeah.
They're protesting Immigration, Customs and Enforcement, or ICE, and its recent raids. The Department of Homeland Security has said, quote, they're going after the worst of the worst criminal illegal aliens. But protesters say families are being torn apart and people are being taken from their places of work, from schools, and they're not criminals. Now, take a look. This was the scene last night as anti-ICE protests continued. Hundreds, if not thousands, took to the streets of downtown Los Angeles for a fourth night. On Monday, law enforcement arrested 96 people, including for failure to disperse. There was one arrest for assault with a deadly weapon, one arrest for resisting arrest, and one arrest for vandalism. 2 LAPD officers were injured and taken to a hospital for medical treatment and released, according to LAPD. During the crowd control situation, there were numerous less lethal rounds used. On Sunday, things turned violent. Agitators vandalized property, broke into businesses. We saw some self-driving vehicles set on fire, and people threw heavy objects off of an overpass onto police cars. Dozens of arrests were also made. The mayor said anyone who vandalized downtown or looted stores does not care about immigrant communities. Now, as day 5 of anti-ICE protests are expected today, the National Guard could be seen in front of federal buildings in downtown and Westwood. And we know hundreds of active duty U.S. Marines stationed in 29 Palms are reportedly being mobilized to Los Angeles to help protect federal agents and buildings. City and state leaders have pushed back against a decision by federal officials. Governor Gavin Newsom and LA Mayor Karen Bass said it was an unnecessary escalation. Bass said it increased tensions in the city, and she believes the chaos was provoked by this administration. Newsom announced that he's suing the Trump administration for sending the California National Guard without consulting him. Now, this morning, LA Mayor Karen Bass said they've not heard about raids today, but the city is not notified when or where they occur and rely on the community for that information.
Just go back in time a minute. On Thursday of last week, Los Angeles was peaceful. There was nothing going on here that warranted the federal intervention that took place the very next day. If we want to look at the cause of what is happening here, I take it back to raids that took place on Friday, and the uncertainty and the fear and the fact that families across the city are terrified that they don't know if they should go to work, they don't know if they should go to school. We have people that were detained. We don't even know the exact numbers of the people that were detained. We have people that have not had contact with legal representation, nor have they even had contact with their families. And so there is an awful lot of concern. When the administration started, they said that this was about crime. They were going to go after violent felons, drug dealers, and I don't know how that matches with the scenes that we saw of people in Home Depot running through the parking lot because they were afraid that they were going to get arrested. You are talking about people who are trying to survive day by day.
And back here live, you can see this group of protesters in front of the federal building. I would estimate maybe a couple of dozen people here. They're carrying signs and flags facing the California National Guard. As you can see there, they tell me that this is a peaceful protest. They want to keep it that way. Now, we know that there are other vigils planned in downtown Los Angeles later today, including an interfaith vigil, which is expected to take place at noon on Los Angeles Street in front of the federal building. Reporting live here in downtown, Kimberly Chang, KTLA 5 News.
All right, thank you, Kimberly. Well, some undocumented immigrants who were caught up in the ICE sweeps last week have already been deported. Mexico's foreign minister says 4 undocumented immigrants who were detained in Friday's ICE raid in the Fashion District arrived in Mexico less than 48 hours later. Some advocates call the speed of their deportation, quote, unusual. The Department of Homeland Security has not said how many people they have detained in the raids so far, but they claim at least 16 people who were captured had extensive criminal histories, and immigrant advocacy groups claim more than 200 people who were detained did not have criminal records. Well, today is graduation day for LAUSD students.
And the ceremonies are happening despite concerns over the ongoing protest. To put families at ease, LAUSD Superintendent Alberto Cavallo has called for safety perimeters around graduation areas. School police have been instructed to impede any federal agents who might try and target these ceremonies. He says graduation ceremonies should be a joyous occasion, and he plans to keep them that way.
Every child has a constitutional right to a public education. Therefore, every child and their parent has a right to celebrate the culmination of their educational success.
Carvalho also says now is a very good time for parents who are afraid of an ICE raid to update their emergency contact information with the district.
So what this broad is not telling you, and we'll get this screenshot up here right now, through Google AI overview. In 2022, California's expenditures on undocumented immigrants totaled $22.82 billion with a B, not million, billion with a B, dollars, primarily for benefits and services. This included costs for education, healthcare, and other services, with education and healthcare accounting for half of the total. An additional $2.1 billion with a B in state funding was estimated for the ongoing cost of expanding Medi-Cal to all eligible undocumented immigrants. Now, this is 2022. It's 3 years ago. Okay, the medical cadaver Alzheimer's poster boy, crap for brains, was running the country at the time. Remember that? And that was just his first year this happened. Detailed breakdown. Total benefits and services, $22.82 billion in 2022. Education and health care, half the total, a significant part of the costs. The Medi-Cal expansion and other costs. The remaining costs to cover various services, including those provided to U.S. residents displaced by the influx of immigrants, according to Migration Dialogue. Well, I think that's a bunch of crap right there. And further on down, it's additional context. California does not allocate funding towards border security, but the total cost of $30.936 billion with a B, including national policing, works out to a per capita cost of $7,074. That's per person, per taxpayer in the state of California. Now, they don't talk about that. They're worried and bitching the hegs at the Secretary of Defense. Well, how much does it cost you to send the Marines? Blah, blah. Okay, it's $136 million, whatever the lady said. Okay. Yeah, okay. But she's not talking about what's been costing us every year. That's just, I only got 1 year up here. Okay. 2022, that's the total. I just read to you. Okay. They're not talking about that. So shame on you, KTLA, and I'm calling you out. Shame on you. Stay tuned for the next video. Thank you. God bless America. God bless Donald Trump. Donald Trump, you got to win this immigration issue. Okay, and now there's protests all over the country being scheduled. Well, stay tuned for the next video. Each video I'll be giving more and more details of what's really going on here. And you know what? Deport them all. Build that wall long and tall. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Stay tuned for the next video.